that rule.
And dozens of protesters gathered in New York City outside Rupert Murdoch's apartment building. The group called for a congressional investigation into whether News Corp break U.S. laws that bans bribes to foreign officials. They attempted to enter Murdoch's building but were denied access. So, what does all this mean? We're joined by former U.S. federal prosecutor Michael Wilds. He's in New York. So let's unpick what Eric Holder had to say. He says we're progressing in that regard, meaning an investigation into the allegations, using the appropriate federal law enforcement agencies. So what does that mean in English?
In simple speak, that means they're going to look into wiretapping, hacking, and bribery and see whether or not any federal or state laws were breached. Simply put, who's watching the watchers? And with, the seamlessness between the pond, between both continents, and the control over major media, this is an extraordinary breach of that trust. The once very highly held ethical standard needs to be always polished and maintained, and these federal prosecutors will then look to see preliminarily if there is grounds for them to conduct a more in-depth investigation as it unfolds.
But would the basis of that investigation be whether News Corp had broken the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act? That is, even if no bribery took place in the US, what we've heard about what's been going on in the UK is enough to investigate and perhaps prosecute.
The nexus in the United States, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journals, Fox News, these are significant holdings, and if a U.S. company is involved in this fashion, if there was in fact a breach into the privacy of 9/11 victims, if bribery of law enforcement occurred, those officers will be prosecuted, and the company and the owners of the company will be prosecuted. Simply put, any testimony offered next week by father and son before Parliament will be relevant in an investigation here. Then venue decisions. Will this be prosecuted in a federal court, in a state court, where the holdings of these major titans of news are held or not? Again, pull the lens back on the landscape, making sure always that news is indeed fair and balanced.
But how do all these different agencies then fit together? We have the FBI, we have the Department of Justice, we have the Securities and Exchange Commission, we have the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and so forth. I mean, how do they all fit together as they investigate whether Murdoch and his empire has done something wrong?
You have an alphabet soup of agencies, everybody with a different jurisdiction, a different turf to protect. Ultimately, like in anti-terrorism initiatives, the one that has the better resources and the ability not only to investigate but to deliver a close prosecution, that is, for example, is it going to be the district attorney's office? Will it be the U.S. attorney? Will the agents that find the testimony already available publicly and that which they'll glean preliminarily be adequate, and then which venue will justice be served? Again, the cost of this investigation, whether or not they in fact will actually see it through, again, giving these gentlemen and this extraordinary company an opportunity, a day in court, is part of this dialogue. Ultimately, this is a fantastic experience that they actually shut down a news corporation in the United Kingdom. Will have reverberating effects, and is it guilt by association in the United States, and what are we going to do about it? Kudos to both members of Congress, both Democrat and Republican, that are looking at this.
Just really quickly, Michael Wilds, I mean, you're suggesting, though, that it is at the discretion of the Attorney General whether something happens. Is it simply about public opinion? Is it about pressure? Or is he required to act if wrongdoing is found in Britain?
All of the above. Quite honestly, the Justice Department, the FBI will investigate, and then they will present the information to the U.S. Attorney. An evaluation will be made whether or not there was a breach and if a full-blown investigation will occur. The eyes of the world are watching, and no doubt the standard, the ethical conduct of journalists and anti-terrorism initiatives, phone tapping, the use of the internet, and as this world gets smaller and more liberal in its electronic usage, all of this is in the abeyance.
Michael Wilds, thank you very much. We'll have to see whether his friends in high places will help out now. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
U.S. President Obama has told lawmakers he wants an agreement on a U.S. debt deal within the next 36 hours.